What's going on, everybody? My name is Jon Lewis from Just Hunt Club, and we want to take a little bit of time today and go over our South Dakota hunt from last fall. Starting off chasing whitetails, and then flipped the switch and ran up north with a couple good buddies to chase mule deer. This trip was the definition of just being mobile all around. Let's go back and start everything off with how this trip kind of came to fruition. I guess this is the third year that somebody from our group has gone out to South Dakota. Chris has been going out for 3 years. Brett went out the first year. Long story short, friend of a friend of a friend of a friend allowed us to hunt their ranch of Chris's, and we decided to start kicking off whitetail season early in September. This past year we went out and Chris was able to harvest an absolute beautiful full velvet 10-pointer on the last day of the trip, and that video is on our YouTube channel if you want to check it out. He played the game right, and it was just an awesome hunt. So last year we decided to go out, and I headed out, and basically the concept of this entire hunt is watching the deer in the evenings, seeing where they're coming out to these big ag fields, bean fields for the most part. And we got out there a couple days early. Chris was watching one part of the farm that we could hunt, and I was watching this really big bean field. And every night there was a bunch of good bucks coming out, but our winds for that week were just terrible to hunt it. So there was no trees to saddle out of or hunt out of a stand for the majority of the week, and that made it pretty difficult. So Bailey and I, we spent a lot of time just kind of scouting around, trying to find deer coming back from those fields to bed. But this time of year, they were so concentrated around those bean fields. So really, in the grand scheme of things, we were just out of the game. And it took a little bit of time for us to watch and really figure out, hey, we need to be way more aggressive. We're probably not going to get our perfect scenario that we're looking for, having a buck walk 20 yards from a tree and being able to shoot them just because of the weather, the wind. It just did not line up that way. On the morning of September 3rd we got a bunch of cedar branches. There's a barbed wire fence that ran through this bean field right on the edge, a little bit of brush, and those deer were jumping right out of that corner. And Bailey and I went in before the hunt and we just made a cedar blind. I sat on the ground, he sat right behind me, and it worked like a charm. I actually missed a buck that day, that evening, and was bummed about it, but it was a really cool hunt. We had deer within bow range pretty much the entire night, saw a bunch of deer, and that mobile strategy of getting out of our comfort zone, thinking that we had to be in a tree or whatever, to let's just do something that's super unconventional, I'd say. We didn't have a pop-up blind. We could have sat there and waited and tried to hunt different spots, but we knew we needed to be where the deer were. So that cedar blind, there's cedar trees everywhere out there. They did not care at all. We did 99.9% of it right, besides releasing the arrow. But this entire trip, my buddy Jake and Austin were north. South Dakota tag was for whitetail or mule deer. It just had to be on private land because you can't hunt public, I think, until like October out there. So I had to hunt private, and I could shoot a mule deer or a whitetail. They were a couple hours north of us mule deer hunting, and we were in communication the whole time. Jake shot a buck, Austin shot a buck like right off the bat. So Jake called me and was like, hey, if you want, you can come up here. We got a couple of days left, spot and stalk mule deer. We're tagged out. We don't want to go home yet. We just got here. And this was right after Chris had shot his buck on the last day of his trip. So Bailey and I were like, you know what? We can always come back here. Let's jump in the truck and go experience something else. So I think it was the 4th of September. We jumped in the truck after we got Chris's buck taken care of, sent those guys off, headed north, and on the way up, Jake is like, hurry up, we got a buck spotted. You're gonna get out of the truck and be on a stalk right away. Got there, literally jumped out of the truck, and immediately we were stalking deer. We showed up there, immediately got on a buck, went to go stalk that buck, ran into another buck, and we're getting pretty close to being able to capitalize on that one. And another buck came up, and had we known he was coming, we probably would have got a shot. And that was our first evening in South Dakota in mule deer country. Day 2, we actually ended up sitting in a tree over a water hole for the first morning. We saddled in that to try to see if we could catch one coming to this water hole. It was hot. It's like 90 degrees. We didn't see anything, and then we pretty much turned right to stalking bucks.
He's gonna move out of there. But you can make that stalk right now.
If we're doing it, let's.
Hey, why not, right? We spotted a buck. We're gonna go make a move on him pretty quick because it's probably gonna get up and move here soon. So we gotta make a loop and then come back down on him. So just jump in the side by and go. And then we had 1 day left. We convinced Jake and Austin to stay for one more day. So when I went into this hunt, my whole theory behind this was just to gain an experience. I try to go into every hunt like that. Obviously, I was hoping to shoot, a good buck. That's always my goal. But at the end of the day, I wanted to go home with some meat. And day 3 of our, I guess 2.5 of our mule deer hunt, we stalked a couple bucks in the morning, and then we basically were like on the way out, like hunt's over, and I was like, at that point I remember driving out, and we had picked up a big muley shed, and we picked up a small muley shed, just a little fork, and I was like, I'm looking for something in between these, either the forky or the big one. I don't care at this point. I want to leave with some meat, because if you haven't eaten mule deer, it's probably my favorite table fare that I've had so far, I guess besides elk. So Jake and Austin dropped me and Bailey off, and it's a perfect situation. We drop down into this little gully, come back out. Well, we just spotted he's not very big, he's just a 2x, but went in room. This guy's hungry. He's out deer meat. Let's go. It's this yucca right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to eat one of these things, dude. They're so good. What these deer do is they'll make cuts into the bank where they actually bed. So it looks like it'd be, when you're looking at them from a distance, that you'd be able to just walk up on them and see them. But a lot of times it's so sharp that you have to get, like I had to get really close to this buck. I think I was like 2 yards, and I could just see the tip of his rack. It may have been a tiny bit back. He was right here. That was sick. He's right here. In the grand scheme of things, my biggest takeaways from this hunt in multiple fashions would be, don't be afraid to take a leap of faith and just run with something. You know, if I would have just been like, nah, I'm gonna stay back and hunt here and kind of keep doing the same thing that I've been doing. Granted, I could have shot a buck doing that as well, but the opportunity popped up for an experience, and I would consider that like an experience of a lifetime. Don't be afraid to just go. The other thing is, don't be afraid to just try new stuff. The worst thing you're gonna do is mess up a hunt, and then guess what? You go out and you do it again tomorrow, and you can always recoup and find deer and do all that type of stuff. So I think we get caught in sometimes in a revolving door of, this is what I should be doing because this is how it's done, and that sometimes will hold you back from just trying new things. Being mobile has just kind of turned into a way of hunting, and you know, whether it's you're hunting out of a saddle, you're hunting out of a stand, you're hunting off the ground, you're hunting out of a blind, that ability to just get up and go and do what makes the most sense has just opened up a bunch of doors of different types of hunting scenarios, different types of opportunities, and ultimately way more ways to be successful. This trip was it was the most fun I've had on a hunting trip. Even if I wouldn't have been successful, it was just the pursuit of watching deer bed down, game planning, and you know, getting an idea of how you want to attack you know, a bedded buck, and the country was just absolutely beautiful. So don't be afraid to try new things. If you get a call from your buddy saying let's go, just go.